Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 328. In this episode, you're going to hear from Alison Rothman MA CYT. She's the founder of Embody Life and is a body-centered holistic coach. In this episode, we talk about so much goodness, but just to name a few of the things we talk about: how she recovered from an eating disorder, had a house fire, and also had a near-death experience. So much craziness, but goodness in this episode. So make sure that you tune in. Before we get there, I gotta know, have you signed up for Friday yet? We have coaching call on Friday. You can go to ordinarytobadass.com/coaching to sign up. It is going to help you accomplish your goals in 2023 and really just take that first step. So often we think that we have to know every step of the way to get to our goals, and then it becomes overwhelming, and then we take no steps at all. So let me help you get there so that you can walk into 2024 like, oh, I got this, and have a little bit of swag in your step. It just takes one little domino. You knock over one domino by taking one step, and then it knocks over another one and another one and another one. But we forget the power of the small steps. So join me on Friday if you're ready to take your first step towards your goal, ordinarytobadass.com/coaching. Can't wait to see you there. And with that, let's get to the episode.
Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Alison Rothman. Alison, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Oh, definitely badass for many reasons that I'm sure we'll get into as we dive in.
I love it when people just own it, because it doesn't happen all the time, which it's
really?
Yes. So Alison, have you always felt like a badass?
Life has taken me on some interesting journeys and that have really demanded a lot of resilience from within. So I would have to say yes. I mean, I think in midst of some of the challenges, I can't ever say that I thought I was ordinary, but in the struggles, sometimes, naturally I was like, can I do this? Can I get through? But always came out the other side. So enhancing this sense of feeling like a badass. So yeah, that's what I gotta say.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's forgotten about, is like the struggles feel really crappy in the moment, but we forget like coming out on the other side of those things and being okay actually gives you more confidence or makes you feel more badass. Has that been true for you?
Absolutely. I always say, so I was a single mom for 11 years. And just before that was on a journey of recovering from eating disorder, 25 years of, recovery, and had a house fire, near-death experience, like crazy shit. And I always say each time I would come through one of those moments, I felt more upright in myself, in my truth and who I was, stronger, clearer, which, is very, it enhances how your feeling of confidence that, okay, like I did that, I got through that, and here I keep going. So, yeah.
So I can't wait to dig in to hear more. But first, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm in my later 40s, approaching 50 very soon. And as I said, I have a 14-year-old, and I was on my own with him for over 11 years. I live in Colorado, and those those 11 plus years of single parenting really shaped so much of me. But prior to that, I was already immersed in the world of holistic wellness and embodiment. And so through yoga and movement and all different modalities. So, on the personal level, I was, trying to mother, sing on my own. And on the professional level, I'm a body-centered holistic empowerment coach, is what I call it. And it's just an alternative to traditional therapy, very body-centered, somatically based work that has really been birthed from all these crazy traumas and dramas that I navigated. So that's just like a snippet along the journey. I'm now partnered and trying to raise a teenager in a really crazy world. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit about being a single mom for 11 years. What would you tell somebody who's going through that right now and is feeling like it's hard or it's hard to move through or to navigate alone? What would you say to that woman?
I mean, so much. Just first of all, validating how hard it is, that I feel like single moms really get such a bad rap. As there's this stigma that there's something wrong, but to me, single moms are like fucking heroes. Am I allowed to curse on your show?
For
Okay.
sure.
In the darkest moments, my kid, not only was I single parenting, I was, was trying to unfurl myself from a abusive relationship, and my son has always had special needs. So it was really, really hard for a lot of years, very dense. But the bond that I have with him is like unbreakable. We are so connected. And so that's like the, silver lining, so to speak. But, to me, single parenting is the ultimate spiritual path of growth. Like there was a point in my journey that, I just had to get out of my own way, like let go of the story that there was something wrong and just really step in and embrace it. And something shifted in that moment. So, everybody's situation is different. I always hesitate to give advice to single moms because it's sensitive, and I understand that, all I can speak from is my experience. And, I, was in affordable housing, having food stamps. Like I didn't have the financial backing and it was hard, but it strengthened me in ways that were unimaginable. And it is a profound path of growth and healing with our children that I think, I stayed single on purpose for all those years because I knew that my son was number one, my son, my career, myself. And I don't regret that, I think people try to push that away, that they're, being alone. But when you can actually embrace that solitude and lean into the loneliness of it and really accept the situation for what it is, I think there's just incredible medicine and profound wisdom that comes from it.
So you mentioned this idea of letting go of the story. How do you do that?
Good question. It's a process. And, I'm a big proponent of meditation. And I always talk about there was a turning point. I found yoga and meditation when I was an undergrad, but, it kind of came and went. I always practiced yoga, but actually sitting in meditation every day was gray until my son was about 3 and I was literally drowning. And I was like, I have to do something drastic here. So I started getting up at 5 a.m. and sitting before he woke up. And then I would turn right to writing and morning pages. It's just like stream of consciousness. So that alone starts to unravel the story. you start to get perspective, because when we live from our heads and allow the storyline to just kind of run the show, we naturally think that's true, right? Yeah, well, but this is whatever it is. But when we can come into center with ourselves and dismantle the story, you notice, you're aware, but it becomes a practice of like, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna stay right here and let you do whatever you need to do over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just like an example, but to me, it's like a journey. It's a process of like not allowing the inner dialogue and the constant storyline that runs through most of our heads to run the show. We all have it, we all have that going on. But it's like this, and for me, I'm in the world of embodiment. So it's this embodied sense of what is true and letting go continuously of what is like bullshit.
Yes. So for the listener, if you don't know, Morning Pages is like something that came from Julia Cameron, and
Yes.
it's just in the morning or when you wake up to write, maybe for 30 minutes, or just write anything that comes to mind, top of your head, without filtering it or thinking like, oh, I shouldn't write that, or that's stupid. It's just unfiltered, writing whatever you want or whatever comes to your head without the worry of somebody else looking at it or somebody else reading it. It's supposed to be just for you. Alison, how has that helped you or changed you?
Tremendous practice. So there's so much in us that we need the channels to express them without necessarily spewing everything to whoever will listen to us, right? And the Morning Pages, I always say, get a crappy spiral notebook from like Walgreens, 99 cents, like, because it doesn't need to be pretty, because sometimes you are writing like you're just like letting it rip. And it's just allowing that stream of consciousness to flush all this stuff out of our systems, right? And sometimes, I write a lot, I blog and stuff. So sometimes my content will come through and I'll circle it so that I come back, but I never go back and read it. But there's something very cathartic about, and, Julia Cameron talks about like 3 full pages. And, sometimes I have nothing to write. I'm like, blah, 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 whatever this is, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to just focus on gratitude, because like, I feel like there's nothing coming through me. But something very cathartic shifts after those 3 pages, even if you don't really know what just happened or what you talked about or wrote about. It's like this energetic shift that we feel by giving voice to all those like incessant voices that are in our head that really don't need like a platform to be heard, that they just need to get out of us, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. It's like if they get out of you, like in the morning, you don't have to have that weigh you down for the rest of the day. And
Exactly.
I think we forget how much our mind is constantly going over stupid little things that take up space.
Exactly. It's like a psychic dump, like our bodies need that. And there's something really powerful about actually sitting in meditation first and then turning to the Morning Pages. You're just a little clearer, and it's, but if you can't, if you're not in the meditation realm, that's fine. But it's, whatever works for you. But yes, you're right. Sometimes we just are walking through our days and we're like, what just I wasn't even paying attention because I was so caught in my story, right? Yeah.
Yes. That made me think, like, sometimes when you're driving your car and then all of a sudden you're just caught in these thoughts, and then you get somewhere and you're like, how did I even get here? Like, you don't remember because you're so deep in thought.
Yeah. I mean, which is like scary in and of itself, right? Like, not okay. But it just brings more consciousness to how we move through our days. I always talk about the importance of morning practice. Whatever it is you do, get yourself anchored in the mornings. And that, again, looping back to the single mom thing, that was like a game changing moment for me I didn't want to get up. I still do it and I still don't want to get up, but I do because I know that unless I am anchored in myself in my days, I can't meet what's going on, with my son, with clients, with my partner, whatever it is, with the world, so yeah.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, I think it's so important to look at different avenues because like just sitting in a chair meditating isn't right for everybody. Or laying down meditating, it's not right for everybody. But I think morning pages can have the same like therapeutic effect. And there's
Absolutely.
different things. Find whatever works for you. Find, whatever your jam.
Exactly. There's no like one formula for anybody, it's finding your track and what you're actually going to show up for yourself to do, that doesn't feel like torture, so yeah, everybody's on their own journey, and that's the beautiful thing about being human. So yeah.
So, how did you get into this journey of being a holistic empowerment coach?
So when I was an undergrad, I grew up a dancer. So I was always like in the body realm, but I developed an eating disorder really about the time I was like 7. I was super body conscious and went away to college, and it just spiraled out of control, trying to like know how to feed myself on my own. And fast forward. So I started practicing yoga and set sail in my early 20s to life and absolutely hit rock bottom, and ended up checking myself into a residential treatment center for eating disorder recovery. I was about 23, and it was a holistic approach, which I had already been dabbling in a lot, but it really brought everything together. I got the movement therapy, nature therapy, food, herbs, flower essences, energy work, body work, acupuncture. I mean, it sounds like it was like a spa, but it really wasn't. It was like a lot of work. Group therapy, one-on-one therapy. That chanting, I mean, you name it. They really brought all the pieces in. And that really set me on, set in motion this track of approaching healing from a holistic and embodied perspective, and recognizing that, prior to that, I was in talk therapy 3 days a week, trying to like figure out what the hell was going on. It did nothing. It sent me into a treatment center. And so, it was like in that moment, I was like, oh, I can't think and talk my way through this. Like, this is all in my body, and I have to get creative as to how to meet that. So, that was kind of like phase 1. And then I ended up, I needed community when I left treatment, and I went to a holistic bodywork school program. And so I didn't know if I wanted to do body work, but I knew I needed like a container. And that kind of gave me a whole other set of tools. I did deep work, like cried every day, being touched, touching, and it was all about heal thyself. And that, just really set sail into this whole other realm of holistic embodiment. And it's just been this process. I came back out of that, and I was practicing body work. I was teaching yoga. And then I decided to study dance movement therapy, and which turned into integrative health coaching, and studied movement-based rites of passage. And it was really, me exploring my own healing process. And I was like, I have to figure this out myself before I can be offering it to others. But, I actually did an interview a couple of days ago, and all this emotion came up. They were like, why do you do this work? And, I struggled for so long that if I can help alleviate the suffering of like one person, like that feels like my service to the world. And I have the tools to do it. So that's just kind of a broad, many years ago, I founded my business called it Embody Life, because I really believe that it is crucial for us to learn how to stay embodied in our lives, no matter what is going on. And, I don't say this lightly, because there are a lot of very highly traumatizing things that happen, and life is not always easy, but how we can stay centered in ourselves. And I use the example of, I came home to my house on fire when my son was 6, and I was still single mom in it. And it was massive, but I learned how to stay connected to myself and integrate this trauma into my everyday existence, in a way that felt aligned and embodied. So, point being, life happens. How can we stay connected to ourselves? That's like the long and short of it all. And not only connected to ourselves, but connected to our bodies, connected to our truth, from a very aligned and empowered place.
So how do we start to do that? And I say this because, so I work in law enforcement, and traditionally, law enforcement shuts off, like, you have to shut off your certain feelings or things. So it's something that I've for sure been working on the last 5 years. But I think that in society today, a lot of people are disconnected from their emotions. And we have so many things like social media to distract us. So how do we start to connect?
Well, it's, moment by moment. It's like step by step, like getting up in the mornings and getting yourself anchored, so that you can start to resource yourself throughout your days, stepping away and, putting your hands on your body and dropping in and checking in. It's like, I'm always like, what little practices can we do in our lives that keep us connected to the whole range of our emotional experiences, that don't numb us or distract us? It's difficult, but it's these moments that we can start to build new muscles of existing, new muscles of strength and resilience from within, that give us the courage. Because really, it does take courage to stop and not grasp for something to numb whatever it is. And, deep bow to you that you're seeing a lot of stuff that a lot of people aren't, and when you are in that realm of, just seeing people's pain and struggles, and, I can't even imagine, that it's this moment by moment, like, okay, I'm going to take some deep breaths and drop into my body and feel what I need to feel, knowing that, yes, obviously you have to show up professionally. And I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to direct this at you, but this is just on the whole, this is like life, right? So, to me, it is creating these tools in your own toolbox that feel aligned for you, that you are committed to doing. Maybe it's when you come home, not you, anybody, you don't pour the glass of wine. Instead, you make a cup of tea and you sit on your couch and you just drop in with yourself. Maybe it's you don't reach for your phone and start scrolling through Instagram or whatever it is. At night, you power things down and you go into light candles and you take a bath and really connect in. It's all these things make a difference. All these things have impact on our ability to continuously show up for life from a vulnerable and real place.
What is something that your clients struggle with, and what do you tell them, or what's the solution you give them?
I mean, a lot. I have a range of clients. Some are unwinding from deep, deep trauma, which have played out in various ways. I have been really drawing in a lot of clients who are in midlife and who are questioning everything, and by midlife, I consider it 40 to 55. So to me, I'm constantly reminding client, I mean, it just depends on the extreme case. Sometimes we are doing some deep unwinding, in the trauma work, because sometimes we get on the table, move. But what do you need to do to get yourself anchored in the moment? Because no matter what is going on in your relationships, in your life, in your work, if you're not home with yourself, it's going to be very difficult. So, that's why I'm constantly, and I'm kind of repeating myself here a little bit, but constantly like, what practices can you commit to doing regularly? Not like, okay, I sat in meditation for 2 weeks and it doesn't work for me. No, these things take time, right? So how can you get yourself into your body? What works for you? Is it a hot bath? Is it a walk outside, connecting to your breath? Is it cooking, good, nourishing, grounding foods? Because when we're disconnected, we can't make any informed decisions. I mean, really, somebody's questioning their marriage, which I have a lot of clients who are right now, in the midlife. I'm like, turn it in, go in. You can't go out and get the answers, So again, it's whatever works for you, and it's going to be different for everybody.
Yes, I love what you just said about turn it in. You can't go out for the answers, because I think that it's so easy to be like, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Instead of listening to the only person that has the true answer, which is yourself.
Exactly. And I mean, there's a time, I mean, obviously I'm like a professional in this world. So sometimes you do need help, sometimes you do need support to access it. You're too, caught in all the stories and the questions, right? So you do need somebody to guide you, to anchor you, but it does not help when we're constantly asking others for their input. It does not serve, So, and that's where the morning pages come in. A lot of information comes through when we write. A lot of information comes through when we turn towards ourselves and don't seek outward input. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's sometimes you need somebody to help you, guide you, like you said, or to navigate. But like you ultimately have the answers within you, but sometimes you just need help, getting there.
Exactly.
And one thing that I love that you said earlier that I wanted to circle back around to was when you were struggling with the eating disorder, you weren't just willing to take one answer. Like you tried many different modalities, many different things. When talk therapy didn't work for you, then you went to something else, and then went to something else, and then to like acupuncture, and tried all these different things. I think oftentimes what we do, and what I've done for sure, like you try one thing, you're like, oh, that's good enough, and you leave it there. But actually, one place might not have all your answers. So I think that's good. What motivated you to keep searching for answers?
Well, I wasn't getting better. I wasn't well. If anything, sitting and the talk therapy 3 times a week was almost making things worse. I was like, I don't want to just keep talking about this shit. Like, I have to like get in this somehow and get this stuff moving, and so I just knew I'm not, and still it's like, even in what I use to help myself, I'm constantly mixing it up. Yes, I've got my like core practices, my core ways, my core whatever it is that I'm doing, but I believe that we have the power to create this may sound a little woo-woo, but I'm kind of a little woo-woo, like magic in our lives, that we deserve. It's our birthright to feel whole and to feel integrated and to feel connected. And if we're not, there are ways of working with that to help support. So why not keep searching? Why not keep growing and healing and get to different levels in ourselves? I mean, what else are we going to do? Just kind of succumb to not feeling awesome, and I'm not saying I am not a good vibes only person at all. Like, I don't buy that at all. I think it's a bunch of BS, but, this is about working with the cards we've been dealt. And we might as well try different things, and connect with different people who have different tools to offer us, and um, explore who we are on deeper levels. I feel like that's part of being human. And, these times have brought up a lot of opportunity for everybody to do that, constantly, for better or worse. So, yeah, that was a total tangent. Sorry.
No, no. So I think sometimes we get this feeling, maybe it's from social media, like life is all gumdrops and lollipops, and we don't see the hard stuff on the other side. Can you take us back to when you were in that house fire, or your house caught on fire, and what you were feeling in the moment and kind of how you got through it?
Yeah. I mean, as I just said, that stuff does not interest me in the slightest. Like, people who are only showing that it's like, oh, my relationship's perfect, my life's perfect, my work's perfect, everything's good. No, like, all about real vulnerability. And I share a lot. Like I said, I blog, and I feel like one of my gifts is to really articulate the challenges of the human experience in a way that is relatable. Because, even if you haven't come home to your house on fire, something has jarred you, not you, but everybody, So, yeah, my son was 6 at the time. I was years into the solo parenting, had finally moved into this, it was still affordable housing, but it was this, I kept calling it beachfront property for a single mom. It was like right up against the foothills, like, these townhomes. I had worked really hard to get us there. We had moved in September, and this was January. And I picked him up from school, and we pulled up, and for some reason I drove all the way. I normally would park in the front, but I went all the way to the back to come in the kitchen. I got out of the car, and the smoke alarm was going off. The fire alarm was going off. And I was like, oh my God. And I went to open my door, and bellows of smoke were coming out. And I, in that moment, it was very hard to even remember what I did. I mean, I was freaking out, obviously. I had neighbors who were home who were not paying. I shared a wall with somebody who did not call the fire department. I mean, this was like beyond my comprehension. Anyhow, it turned out, luckily, the house did not burn down. A fire lit and went out and smoldered, but I lost, 95% of my stuff due to smoke damage. And I had been doing massage. You don't need to get all the details of how this happened, but it was a fluke, crazy thing. But, in the aftermath, really the biggest medicine that I got, I had been so alone in my parenting, and my son was struggling, and never really felt like I had community. And after that, this community rallied around me. I mean, within hours, I had people over at my house. That was the one thing that social media did well for me. I put up a post on Facebook, like, this happened. If you can come help me. I had to pack all my stuff up and get it out of my house. I was shocked. I was in absolute, utter shock. This community rallied. They raised money for us. They helped to, get all this stuff out of the house. And, I cried a lot in those days after. That was the only way I could process, I couldn't sit still. I would go on my mat, and I would move my body, and I would cry, and I would feel the magnitude of it. But it was a mix of like shock and trauma, as well as like, oh, I'm not alone, I mean, that was like really literally the first time in 6 years that I felt like I've got people I can lean into. In the months that followed, everything ended up working out okay. I had a place to stay. They fixed my apartment. We moved back in. But the trauma of driving up to that house, my dryer handle it was melted. And in the years that I lived there, I ended up living in that place for 6 years. It was just this constant reminder. Every time I went into the kitchen, it was this constant reminder of the smoke. And then so it was hard. I had been working so hard to build us up and to create this home, and then in an instant everything was taken away, but at the same time, it was this feeling of this polarity of like, okay, like I'm not alone in my struggle, and I've got these people to support. So that was just I don't know if I answered your question at all, but
Yeah. Well, I think it's powerful because sometimes we don't ask for help when we need it. And it's only an ask away. But if we don't ask, then people don't know that we actually need the help.
Yeah. It brought me out of my isolation. There were no more masks, like people were showing up. I was a puddle. I was crying. I was totally traumatized. They were holding my son, in this level of care too. And it was a huge lesson for me because I needed help. I always needed help, but in that moment, I really needed it. And I asked and it happened, so I think, I you know I trust in the flow of life. I trust that the universe never gives us more than we can handle, and for whatever reason we were supposed to go through that. And the medicine of that moment in time like stuck with me. It helped me to strengthen myself even more so that I could keep showing up as a mom and as, in this role of healer. So
Yeah. So it sounds like you've been through being a single mom. You had your house catch fire, and you've also just been through hardships, eating disorder, those kind of things. What is it you say nowadays? Because I'm sure through several different hardships, like you begin to learn skills. What is it you say to yourself when you're going through hard times? How do you motivate yourself to keep going or to get through those hard times?
It's a good question. I mean, the whole "this too shall pass," of course, is, kind of cliche. But I just think that at this juncture, there's something deep in me that knows that all is well, that I, even in darker moments, and I still have them, I still go get down and, feel like shit for a couple, I have weeks where I'm like, and now I'm perimenopausal and it's a whole other thing, so the hormones and my body's changing, everything's changing. But I just think there's just like this deep well of strength and faith and trust in, this journey of life. And, approaching 50, I really try to focus on how precious life is. And even if I'm not feeling great, to take care of myself in that moment, because I've learned when we're going through hard times, if we beat ourselves up for going through hard times, it makes it like a gazillion times worse. So why not just melt into that, like take care of whatever is coming up for you. Like whatever comes up for me, if it's like not like doesn't feel awesome, I take care of myself in that moment. I cook the good food. I get into the bath. I rest more. I've just learned that I can't keep pushing against or like punishing myself for not feeling amazing, because it's part of life.
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking that even when you talked about the fire, it's like, it's easy to go one way, or it's easy to get into the part like, I'm the victim. Why did this happen to me? It's all my fault. Any of those things. And even if you think that at first, there's still a way to like try to flip it, or even when you have some space. Like you can have your reaction when it happens, but then just, I think it's to not stay stuck in that.
Absolutely. I was just talking about this the other day, like the whole victim mentality. I can't get on board with it, and even, I was traveling alone in Mexico on my 43rd birthday, I think. And the cartel opened fire. Like I thought I was going to die, and like, that was my vacation, and I was like, I definitely over the years have been like, why me? Like, why, but it does not serve, and it makes things worse. So I've just learned that if I can focus on what it is I'm supposed to learn from this, what is the medicine here? What do I need to know? How do I need to grow myself? It just changes everything because, as you said, when we dwell on, the victim place, it's just, I just can't, it just doesn't land with me. So, and if I have clients who come in who are in that place, I mean, I really do try to stay compassionate, but I'm also like, come on, like, we got to get moving here. This staying stuck in, it's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel sad about what's going on, but also simultaneously, like, hold ourselves, up to this place of like, okay, this is my life and I'm going to meet it to the best of my ability.
So good. So, Alison, let's end with the tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Believe in yourselves. Trust where you are on your journey. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, and again, it's like coming back to turning towards ourselves with this love and compassion rather than away as though there's something, wrong with us. That when we meet ourselves in those places of fighting, that's when we start to heal. That's when we start to grow and rise up into our truth and power. So I will leave it at that.
And how can we connect with you?
So I have a website that's in the process of being transformed, hopefully sooner rather than later. It's been a process. It is embodymylife.com. I offer a bunch of different virtual and in-person circles. I run retreats and I work one-on-one with clients. I also am moderately active on Instagram. That's at embody_life. And I do it in my own way. And it's, it's very authentic. And so always happy to, and you can always just schedule, if you just want to connect, I've got a link on my website to schedule a 20-minute clarity call. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Alison. I've enjoyed hearing your story, and you're a total badass.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to have met you, and this has been fun.
Yeah, it was great having you on.
And you're a badass too.
Thank you. And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.